The man in the elevator doesn't speak. Neither does the one beside him. They're both wearing navy blue jackets with stitched patches, no insignias, just a 4-digit alphanumeric code in matte thread. Their sidearms are holstered high, close to the ribs, where you can't reach them easily if you try to lunge. They don't look at me, and they don't need to. I've already signed the waiver, or rather, I signed it 3 years ago, during the disciplinary review that ended my tenure. Future consultation as condition of silence. I remember thinking it was symbolic, a clause for the paperwork. It wasn't. We pass level 3, and the elevator doesn't slow. That's the animal behavior flaw. I saw it once back when Omega Black was still unofficial, just a proposal inside a classified ARPA bio slide deck. The flaws weren't numbered then, just labeled neural integration, recombinant mapping, subject enclosures. Now it's neat, numbered, anonymous. Level 5 ticks past, then 6. I haven't been told where we're going, only that I'm needed for a language containment review. I've never worked in linguistics. The taller guard glances down at his wrist. He's got one of the old DARPA field model monitors, flat black, rugged casing, pulse and cognition metrics. A red indicator's blinking slowly. I know what that means. My anxiety is above threshold. That's fine. I'm not trying to impress anyone. The elevator shudders once before stopping. The doors slide open, revealing a short corridor lined in polymer sheeting, the kind used in cold weather construction. There are no directional signs, only a floor mat with the words biological containment, stenciled across the rubber in block lettering. Underneath, cognitive parity risk, Tier 4. I already regret coming. The guards don't escort me further. That's intentional. There are sections of this facility where federal liability ends if you proceed on your own volition. This is one of them. I step out. Omega Black isn't a singular building. It's a vertical complex built beneath the Cold Region Test Center outside Fort Greely, Alaska. Originally a missile interception site, now rezoned under DETRA, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. Most people have never heard of DETRA. That's by design. Their real mission isn't public safety. It's biological containment at scale. Chemical, genetic, psychological. The hallway isn't cold, but it's dry, bone dry. Even the skin on my face feels tighter as I walk, like the air's been stripped of anything molecularly alive. To my left, a steel-framed window opens into an observation room. It's empty, except for a single data station facing inward. Beyond that, a second layer of glass, thicker, fogged slightly at the corners. Something moves behind it. "Dr. Pike!" I turn. The voice belongs to a man standing in the corner. He must have been there already, but I didn't notice. Mid-40s, tall, wearing a grey cardigan with the sleeves pushed up, and wire-rimmed glasses with a green reflection off the lenses. "Dr. Quen," he says, "Halric Quen, Neuro-Linguistic Modelling." I know the name. He built the CCI model, Cognition, Communication Interpolation. It's a real-time pattern extrapolator. Takes subsemantic vocalizations and runs predictive regression across multiple language families. The government's been using it to analyze emergent speech patterns in subjects with neurotrauma. I never imagined it would be installed in a place like this. He gestures toward the glass. "You're not being asked for interpretation," he says. "We just want to see your reaction." Inside the chamber, there's a chimpanzee. Female. Midlife by the look of her. She's seated in the corner of a room furnished like a bare nursery. Plastic flooring, rounded furniture edges, wall padding in neutral grey. "She's subject B17, Quen says. "Part of the second corrective cohort. No speech conditioning. No behavioural pre-training. She began self-vocalising 4 days after correction." Correction. That's what they're calling it now. As if the human genome was a text file with typos. "What kind of correction?" I ask. "You'll understand. Just watch." He lifts a remote and speaks into it. "Initiate playback. Sequence Delta 3. A soft tone sounds in the chamber. The chimp doesn't flinch. A light embedded in the ceiling pulses once, low and amber. Then she speaks. It's not a mimic. It's speech. The voice is soft, higher pitched than expected, and there's an odd rhythm to it, half hesitation, half recitation. You can't force the system, you have to coax it. That's what you said, remember? Quen glances at me but doesn't press. He knows I recognize the phrase. It's mine. I said it once in a lab in Massachusetts to a graduate assistant whose name I've tried to forget. I feel a mild clench in my stomach. It's not nausea, it's familiarity. She's never been exposed to human speech beyond standard handler commands, Quen says. No records exist of her encountering any vocal data like this. No audio leaks. We've run full vector checks. Nothing. I step closer to the glass. The chimp, B-17, tilts her head slightly. Her eyes track something behind the glass, not directly at me, but close. She blinks once, then repeats the phrase. Same cadence, same pause before the final clause. She's not learning it, I say. She's retrieving it. Yes, Quen says, or reconstructing it. There's a difference. Learning implies input. Reconstruction implies embedded instruction. What exactly did you change in her? Quen doesn't answer. He taps the screen beside him, pulling up a genetic map. It's a segmented overlay, baseline chimpanzee genome against an edited sequence. The edit spans 32 loci, heavy emphasis on regions associated with cortical integration and Broca's area analogues. Language centers. One of the corrections is identical to an early stage model I proposed 8 years ago. It was dismissed as non-viable due to cascade instability. You used my work. Quen's head tilts. We used fragments derived from patterns consistent with the signal. He means the SETI signal. The anomaly detected in 2037, originally classified as background interference, until reanalysis revealed repeating rhythmic intervals with non-random harmonic spacing nested within the waveform. The public version of the discovery was buried. The real version, what was found in the encoded structure, was handed to ODNI, then funneled to ARPA Bio under Project Palimon, a joint black program housed under Title 50 authority, covert intelligence operations with latent biowarfare implications. The signal was biological. Inside it, a correction to the human genome. We didn't create the correction, Quen says calmly. We just decoded it and applied it. I look at the chimp again. She's not repeating the phrase now. She's mouthing something silently, then stopping, then trying again. It looks like she's practicing, rehearsing a phrase before saying it aloud. What's the error rate on her speech? Under 2%. We've mapped the phonemic alignment against mid-century English dialects, mostly East Coast. Why that dialect? We don't know. There's a pause. Quen studies me for a long second, then adds almost as an afterthought, "She spoke your name yesterday." We leave the chamber without another word. The corridor turns left, then angles downward into an older section. Concrete instead of polymer sheeting, cables exposed in overhead baskets. Quen walks slightly ahead. You didn't ask why we called you in. I assumed you needed a plausible deniability clause covered. That too, but mostly we need you to confirm whether this matches anything you've seen before, especially in your embryo models. That freezes me. No one should have access to those logs, not even internal oversight. They were never submitted formally, just kept offline in encrypted drives I was told had been wiped by order of the ethics board. You're making assumptions, I say. No, I'm making connections. At the end of the hall is a secure room with 2 biometric locks. Quen opens it with a wristpad scan and retinal confirm. Inside is a small desk, 2 chairs and a single terminal, military spec, air-gapped, with a rotary switch for physical drive control. No touchscreen, everything in hard keys. He slides a folder toward me, actual paper. Inside, printouts of gene correction patterns annotated with timestamps. I flip through them slowly. Halfway down the stack, one of the correction sequences matches a prototype vector I developed for neural symmetry realignment. intended to allow language mapping across both hemispheres in utero. It failed in every trial. The one live test, the embryo, never developed coherent speech markers. But now the pattern's complete. The signal filled in what I couldn't. Where did you get this? Recovered from the decoded signal 2 months ago. It's mine. Not anymore. He leaves me alone in the room for 20 minutes. When I finally emerge, I've made a decision. I need access to the correction archive. Full sequences, subject performance logs, linguistic modeling data. Quen agrees with a single nod. You'll have what you need, he says. But one thing first. You should know. The correction may be linguistic, but it's not just verbal. What does that mean? It's structural. Language isn't just how they communicate, it's how they're built. He doesn't elaborate. He just turns away, already pulling up another terminal input, shifting back into whatever thread he was working before I interrupted it. I don't push him for more. Quen's explanations arrive in layers, and pressing for clarity only slows them down. I exit the data chamber without signing anything, which is another deviation from protocol. Clearance logs at Omega Black are typically confirmed with a biometric imprint and keystroke, even for internal transfers. No one stops me. The hall outside is empty, just the low thrum of industrial air cycling through overhead ducts, and the barely audible whine of thermal regulators deeper in the walls. The facility always sounds more active than it looks. I take the central stairwell instead of the elevator, stepping down the narrow steel treads 2 floors. At level 4, the usual checkpoint door waits. A wide, matte frame with inset thermal and retinal panels, bordered by passive biometric sensors embedded flush with the wall. The biometric doors to level 4 have begun opening before I reach them. That's not supposed to happen. The sensors are calibrated to detect body temperature, gait pattern, retinal match, and badge signal before unlocking. In the event of any incongruity, even a lag in heartbeat coherence, the doors delay and flash red. Mine open as I approach, without the final scan. A quiet hiss, followed by a soft mechanical glide. I stop and let my badge hang from the reader, just to see if it responds. It doesn't. The lock's already been cleared. Either the system's learning my presence faster than it should, or someone is overriding it in advance. Inside, the data hall is quieter than usual. 4 rows of processing terminals, low-profile, brushed alloy casings bolted into modular desk frames, stand mostly unused. The usual off-cycle hum of active diagnostic loops isn't there, just the slow, indistinct ticking from a ceiling-mounted relay that hasn't been used in decades. There's no technical reason it should be audible. On the 3rd row, Dr. Len Vedran is reviewing genetic drift maps on a dual-panel array. The screens show color-coded heat graphs, one for genomic correction efficiency across non-human mammal trials, the other for emerging behavioral regularities. The overlays look like abstract art unless you know what you're looking for. Vedran does. He was head of experimental data synthesis at Cold Spring Harbor before being folded into ARPA Bio's Applied Outcomes division. His posture never changes, upright, steady, one leg crossed, hands relaxed in his lap. If you didn't know him, you'd assume he was just resting. In reality, he's already logged 6 predictive reports today, one of which was quietly escalated to strategic oversight. That means Ruth saw it. "You're late," Vedran says, eyes still on the screen. "I wasn't scheduled." "You are now." I take the seat beside him. It's the kind of seat that doesn't adjust. DTRA furniture is designed to outlast preference. I lean forward slightly to see the heat map more clearly. "Cohort G," he says, pointing. 27 subjects, cross-species, primates, canids, 2 dolphins, 1 post-correction, 1 control. Look at the convergence. The map shows phase synchronization, patterns of neural spike events aligning across species that shouldn't share cognition models, let alone language onset timelines. "You ran behavioral tests?" "Call and response, gesture matching, reflex inhibition, then indirect response latency. They're not just learning patterns, they're arriving at the same response models independently." Which means the correction isn't instructive, I say. It's directive. Vedran taps a key. A third map appears. Time-stamped behavioral markers with predictive overlays. Week 1, vocalization onset. Week 2, symbolic behavior. Week 3, today, first recorded instance of mirrored speech anticipation. Subject B17. That's the chimpanzee from yesterday, the one who spoke my words. She repeated a phrase a second before the handler said it. Not mimicry, anticipation. We've checked audio drift, timestamp errors, environmental noise bleed. The phrase wasn't heard before it was spoken. She said it first. I stare at the overlay. There's no spike, no anomaly marker, just a smooth curve. The system didn't flag it. That's a bad sign, Vedran nods. The algorithms are treating pre-echo speech as normal variation now. It's adjusting its baseline. So we're being trained. Or overwritten. He says it like he's describing the weather. For Vedran, statistical implication carries more weight than fear. It's not a lack of emotion, it's that probability is the emotion. He scrolls further down and opens another file. A linguistic schema generated from Quen's model. You'll want to see this. The schema is made of nested trees. Language evolution diagrams cross-mapped against correction-influenced vocal formations. At first glance, it looks like a morphology chart. Then I realize it's a convergence model. Multiple species, independent correction protocols, all arriving at a shared lexicon. Some of the phonemes have no known root in human language. Others are fragments, borrowed vowels, consonant groupings with no semantic legacy. What's this node here? I tap a small cluster on the edge. That, Vedran says, is the phrase B17 said yesterday, the one she got from you. It wasn't recorded anywhere. Except it was, embedded in one of your unpublished embryo correction files. Vector log 17C, timestamped 2029. I feel my hands tighten slightly on the edge of the desk. That vector file was offline, fully encrypted, segmented, and never uploaded to institutional servers. The subject died 93 hours after correction. Speech centers never formed. It was an error, I say quietly. An unstable prototype. Well, she's speaking it now, so either it wasn't, or someone made it viable. The room is too quiet. I hear the faintest sound. Paper. Real paper, not screens. Behind us, someone is rifling through printed sheets. Vedran doesn't react. He already knows who it is. I turn and see Lynn Ocean, the printer technician, standing next to a tall stack of output trays. He's a narrow man, shoulders slightly hunched, always looks like he's trying not to be seen. His jumpsuit is half zipped, revealing a thermal undershirt and a badge with a mismatch. Printed photo shows a different haircut. "Morning, Dr. Pike," he says, eyes still on the paper. "You printed your name again." He holds up a page. My name is printed 12 times, top to bottom. The font is slightly wider than standard, kerning inconsistencies. I didn't request anything. I know, but it came through the offline spooler. Same as last time, no source log. What queue did it root from? He shrugs. Queue's empty. Paper's warm, though. Means it just came through? Did it match a correction signature? Nope, he says, but the characters, they're not entirely Latin. I ran an OCR scan. Half of it resolves as English. The rest just loops. He turns to walk away, then pauses. "They're saying your name now, Doctor. The ones downstairs." He doesn't wait for a response. Vedran watches him go, then switches the display to facility-wide language adaptation logs. "You know what worries me?" he asks. "There's no anomaly flag for the speech loop anymore. That used to be a Tier 3 containment trigger. Now it's tagged as expected behavior." "They changed the classification." "They didn't. The system did." That catches me off guard. The system's behavioral tagging layer is isolated from network access. No external software update should be able to reclassify threat patterns, not without direct access. Who has right access to the tagging layer? "Just two names," Vedran says. "Dr. Quen and Routh." "Routh. Commander Arkady Routh is the Senior Director of Strategic Oversight for Sub-Agency Delta 141. Internally, they're referred to as Corrections Command. His clearance exceeds mine by 3 layers, and he has discretionary authority over trial escalation. The last time I saw him, he was giving a speech to White House science liaisons about long-term biosurvivability metrics. He referred to correction as an adaptive sieve. That was the first time I heard anyone call it a filter. I don't know if he believes that. I suspect he does. I need to speak to Routh, I say. Vedran smiles. Good. He's been waiting for you to ask. Ruth's office is on level 2, a repurposed telemetry suite from the original missile defense facility. It's the only part of Omega Black that hasn't been retrofitted. You can still see the ceiling tiles from the 1990s, yellowing slightly at the edges. A long, rectangular wall map hangs across from the desk, with embossed outlines of geopolitical regions. United States in the center, nothing labeled, just vector grid overlays. Ruth stands as I enter. He's taller than I remembered. His presence isn't loud, but immediate. He doesn't offer a seat. That's intentional. Dr. Pike, he says, I understand you've reviewed the B-17 data. I've seen enough to know the correction is adapting faster than modeled. Yes, and? You used my genomic sequence in your protocol, without clearance. You forfeited clearance when you burned your license. We reclaimed the data under national interest exception. That's not how ethics works. I'm not interested in ethics, Doctor. I'm interested in containment. He walks to the wall map and taps a region in the upper left. Alaska. A blinking red dot appears, overlaid with concentric rings. This is our current influence perimeter. Containment's holding. No signal bleed beyond our secure zones. But the correction is shifting. He brings up a second screen. Signal harmonics rendered into waveform tiers. The top layer is clean, original signal as intercepted. The bottom is not. You see this modulation? It's replicating facility comms cadence, not just mimicking, matching. The signal is learning us. I study the waveform. Correction isn't a one-way instruction, I say slowly. It's recursive. Ruth nods. We believe it's waiting for something, a threshold, possibly a test, possibly consent. He turns back to me. His face is calm, controlled. You can't undo what you started, Doctor, but you can help finish it. The next phase requires alignment. Linguistic, cognitive, biological. You're the closest we've come to a consistent variable. You want me to run the human trials? No, I want you to join them. He taps the terminal once. Behind him, the wall map zooms in. A new dot appears. This one's labeled Subject, Solin, Status, Pending Correction Protocol. I don't remember consenting, and I don't know who did it for me. The day Len Vedran volunteers, no one raises their voice. The decision isn't debated in a formal setting, and there's no meeting. No email, no memo circulated through the internal network, no traceable signature chain. Just a printed statement, unsigned, left at the base of his terminal, under a paperweight, shaped like a staggered spiral, a Fibonacci variant, carved into brushed aluminum. Vedran made it himself years ago during remission. The statement is 7 lines long. The last one reads, "If we won't let it pass through us voluntarily, it will find another way." I find him standing in sub-level 7, the containment preparation corridor, already half-suited in an inertial harness. It's a hybrid exosuit designed to stabilize autonomic response during preclinical trials. Originally built for chemical nerve agent testing, now repurposed for genetic tolerance protocols. Thin carbon gel cuffs wrap his forearms. A sensory collar rests against his neck, feeding telemetry into a cold storage data loop monitored by an isolated AI core 2 floors above. His expression is as fixed as always, measured, composed, with the calm attentiveness of someone who long ago stopped assuming his body belonged to him. He doesn't seem surprised to see me. "You came down," he says, adjusting the left shoulder band. "I assumed you'd be up with Roth, negotiating another delay." They didn't approve this. He doesn't look at me. No, but they stopped rejecting it. That's as close as anything gets to permission around here. I move closer. The floor beneath us vibrates slightly, barely perceptible through the boots, but enough to register. The vibration isn't mechanical, it's rhythmic, recurring every 11 seconds. Quen says it's harmless, a result of thermal regulation across lower-level biocontainment tanks, but I've measured the interval. It's lengthening. This protocol wasn't designed for human correction, I say. We haven't modeled tolerability thresholds past hour 72. We've modeled enough. Enough for what? To know I won't survive unaltered. He finally turns. There's no argument in his expression, just calculation. Not the performative kind Routh uses to win rooms. Real calculation. Variables, probabilities, weightings. A long string of risks that ends with the same answer no matter how you flip the sequence. I've run the numbers, he says. Cognitive decay at my stage is accelerating. I have 68 days left, maybe less. The margin of error in my self-monitoring logs is widening. I'm misremembering command inputs, occasionally doubling a word when I speak. I hadn't noticed. You wouldn't, he says. That's the point. The system caught it. And that's what worries me. He leans forward to secure the clasp around his thigh. Do you know what else the system's caught? He continues. Everyone on this floor is converging. Our phrasing, our syntax, even the way we pause mid-sentence, it's narrowing. We're collapsing into a shared pattern. That's observational drift. It's expected in closed research environments. No, it's not drift. It's alignment. I can't tell if he believes that or if he's trying to justify what he's about to do. Maybe both. A technician enters, Cara Molina. Young, one of the junior personnel reassigned from the CDC when Omega Black superseded their jurisdiction. She says nothing, just steps into the control booth and begins cycling the prep routine. There's no protocol checklist. She doesn't read anything aloud. She's done it often enough to know the timing by feel. The lights embedded in the far wall begin to sequence in reverse, amber to green. When the last one holds steady, the door to the correction chamber slides open. Vedran doesn't move right away. Why now? I ask. He adjusts the chest seal. Because we're already changing, Nathan. You just haven't noticed yet. The correction chamber isn't large, about 8 meters across, half that wide, with brushed steel panels covering the walls and a sealed atmospheric loop overhead. Everything is viewed remotely, through infrared and passive audio pickup. Anything more direct risks contamination, biological or cognitive. Vedran stands in the center of the chamber. He's removed the exosuit frame, now reduced to embedded biosensors and the monitoring collar. A floor plate lifts, slowly, revealing the storage canister, thick polycarbonate reinforced by lead shielding. The correction vector inside is a pressurized medium, genetically encoded retroviral agents, suspended in a synthetic serum calibrated to human viscosity and temperature ranges. The vector sequence, C14NT4, is one of 5 synthetic constructs reverse-engineered from the signal. Not built from scratch, but assembled using encoded genomic fragments layered into human DNA maps. Each sequence includes a series of recursive edits, self-perpetuating genomic instructions designed not to introduce foreign material, but to overwrite existing regions. Unlike traditional viral therapies which rely on host cell reprogramming, the correction uses comparative targeting. It identifies inefficient regions and substitutes optimized patterns. The system isn't adding, it's subtracting the original. Vedran doesn't flinch when the serum is administered. The mist release is timed precisely, 7 seconds in chamber, 5 more in microfiltration. Then the system seals. I watch from the observation terminal 3 levels up, logged into the passive monitor. The chamber's visual feed isn't immediate. There's a deliberate 3-second lag built into the signal relay. Part safety precaution, part protocol artifact. It gives the illusion of distance. He's still standing. 3 minutes pass, then 5. Quen appears beside me, unannounced. He always walks quietly. His lab coat sleeve is rolled slightly above the wrist, revealing a notepad. Not digital, a physical paper notepad, with phonetic symbols scrawled across half the page. He's initiating auditory priming, Quen says, pointing toward the monitor. How can you tell? He's tapping. I look again. Vedran's hand is resting lightly against his leg. Every few seconds he taps. It's a cadence I recognize. Early correction subjects did the same. It wasn't random. The pattern matched the opening phoneme structure of a phrase used by the canid group. He's repeating it in his head, Quen says. We say nothing for a while. The tapping stops. Vedran lifts his head. His mouth moves, but the feed has no audio yet. Quen activates the secondary microphone array. Not yours, Vedran says. His voice is steady. There's no sign of stress or strain. Not yours. We remember. We keep. We finish. We finish. The audio drops into feedback for half a second, then levels. Quen taps the control surface, muting the input. Expected? I ask. No, he says, but consistent. The monitor shows his vital stats. Heart rate stable, brainwave activity elevated, memory center activation spiking. We should sedate him. No, Quen says. We let it continue. He's across the line now. A message pings on the corner of the interface. Quen reads it, then looks at me. Commander Routh wants to speak with you. Routh's operations briefing room is smaller than I expected. A long table with 6 chairs, all empty. He's standing beside a wall-mounted display showing 2 overlaid spectrographs, one from the original SETI signal, one from Vedran's vocalization. The alignment is near total. He's synchronizing, Routh says. This is no longer an experiment, it's a diagnostic. We're not testing the correction, it's testing us. You don't believe that. I believe the facility has begun adapting to the correction's pattern. I believe the personnel are shifting linguistically in ways we cannot quantify. And I believe the only path forward is intentional transition. You're talking about system-wide implementation. I'm talking about selecting for resilience. He taps the spectrograph. Vedran's still coherent, still aligned. If he stabilizes, we move to cohort alpha. You mean human trials? They've already begun. He hands me a tablet. I recognize the interface. It's the clearance matrix, normally locked to oversight level 2. It shows 5 subjects listed under pending activation. Subject 1, Vedran, Len. Subject 2 through 4, redacted. Subject 5, Pike, Nathan. I set the tablet down. I didn't authorize this. You did, Routh says calmly. The moment you walked back into this building. I try to speak. No words come. My mind cycles through phrases, questions, denials, but none feel ordered. None feel mine. Every morning since my reassignment to Omega Black, the first 8 minutes of activity have followed a fixed pattern, hardwired into the facility's operational script. Badge in, biometric hand scan, 4 ascending notification tones as subsystems check status. Hallway LEDs rise in segments of 4, 6, then 10, according to staff tier proximity and floor clearance. Then, the double beep of environmental normalization, temperature and particulate balance modulating to ISO lab standards. Today, none of that happens. The biometric scanner accepts my hand without resistance, but the wall remains dim. The tones don't sound, the LED sequence doesn't trigger. The temperature holds steady at just over 20 degrees Celsius, about 2 degrees higher than the facility standard, and the particulate scanner throws a reading error. I check the timestamp. 6 o'clock on the dot. But nothing around me acts like a schedule exists anymore. The system's not off, it's simply ignoring its routine. I move through the south corridor toward Linguistics Archive 3. The hallway extends longer than it should. I've walked it daily for 2 weeks, 65 meters from scanner to junction, according to the official floor plan. Today, it takes me nearly a minute longer, even walking at pace. When I reach the end, the door junction is labeled incorrectly. It reads, Archive 4, There is no Archive 4. Inside the room is familiar. Layout identical. 6 terminals, deep archival racks, temperature stabilized for paper documents, but the furniture isn't arranged properly. The desk nearest the far wall is angled 5 degrees off alignment with the floor markings. The floor markings are correct. I checked them twice. I've sat at that desk. I've memorized its placement. Now, it's wrong. Someone is sitting there. I don't immediately recognize him, though I've seen him nearly every day. Vega Knoll, the observation tech assigned to upper-level containment monitors. He rarely leaves his post. His job is simple in description, difficult in execution. Maintain continuous, uninterrupted visual logs of all Class B enclosures, including any subject exhibiting vocal mimicry or linguistic mutation. His desk sits behind triple-layered laminated glass 40 meters above the enclosures. He has no authority. He doesn't speak unless addressed. He records timestamps and files. Knoll doesn't look up. His head is tilted just a fraction to the left, as if listening to something embedded inside the wall. Vega. He doesn't answer. I step closer, keeping my tone measured. You're not cleared for this sector. I didn't walk here, he says. His voice is quiet, crisp, not confused. I looked away from the enclosure, he continues, and this is where I was. I glance down at the floor by his feet. His ID badge lies on the tile, face up. It reads, Level 3 clearance. Archive access requires Level 4. There's no override pathway for that. The system shouldn't have let him through, unless the system didn't notice or didn't care. What were you observing? I ask. He finally looks at me. His pupils are dilated. The light here is standard lab-grade white, 5,000 Kelvin, but he's reacting like it's a floodlight. It whispered again. He says, Which subject? No subject. He blinks. The window. I don't ask him to explain. I've seen the behavior catalogued. In 3 separate incident reports over the last month, unrelated staff, 1 technician, 1 records officer, 1 biocomms analyst, have described audio phenomena involving architectural features, a desk, a vent, a sealed window. None of these items have audio components. After evaluation, the incidents were classified as peripheral semantic displacement, an official euphemism for hallucination under information stress. All 3 personnel were removed, not fired or reassigned, just listed as cleared from site, no forwarding contact. The term comes from a DARPA white paper dated 2029, Cognitive Infrastructure Drift in High Saturation Environments. I reviewed it once. It warned about recursive feedback loops in linguistic AI networks exposed to non-semantic vocal input. It didn't include architectural anomalies. Vega leans forward, resting his elbows on the desk. The bird, he says. What bird? He blinks again. In enclosure F, the miner. It stopped flying 2 days ago. Miners are capable mimics. The one in enclosure F was part of the second corrected group. Initial trials showed accelerated vocal range and pattern frequency, but the subject never developed the repetition lag seen in primates. It only echoed, never anticipated. What's it doing now? I ask. It folds itself. Folds? He nods. Like a sheet, he says. Tucks in its wings, then its feet. It presses its beak to the floor and waits for exactly 91 seconds every time. He doesn't look at me when he says it, just the desk, like it's still showing him something. By midday, 6 departments have logged separate system anomalies. Archive sequencing is off by 2 index layers. The thermal algorithm used to regulate genetic storage substrates has rerouted control to linguistic servers. Several audio files are now reading as genomic data. One crosslink shows a translated sequence labeled phoneme stream, unknown structure, resolving into correction vector code. It shouldn't be possible. There's no physical link between the systems. I find Quen standing in his soundproof lab chamber. He's surrounded by paper transcripts, pages covered in correction subject vocalizations. Most are crossed out, some circled. He's pinned them to the walls with numbered thumbtacks. None of the numbering matches sequence order. "You've seen the file, I assume," he says. "Which one?" "The miner's vocal trace." "I have. Earlier today." 8 hours of silence, then one sound, modulated beyond recognition. A chirp at first. Slowed down, it became a dissyllabic phoneme. Slowed further, it matched a phrase logged last week by subject B17. "Begin with him." I ask Quen if the match is confirmed. "It's within 2 decimal points," he says. "Under our thresholds, that's linguistic identity." "And if the system cross-correlates the signal with that phrase, what happens?" He turns now. He looks at me directly. "It already did." He pulls up the logs, timestamped 2 hours ago. The facility's voice analytics system, once confined to isolated test logs, has begun integrating correction vocabulary into staff language drift models. The AI has built a library of hybrid terms, a convergence lexicon. "How long?" I ask. 16 hours, maybe less. "Until what?" "Until it stabilizes." "And if it doesn't?" He shrugs. "It still runs." Later, I find my way to the facility's deep archive, the part few staff acknowledge, and even fewer admit they've visited. Officially called the Historical Ethics Repository, it houses terminated projects, failed correction trials, and early-stage research that never made it past internal review. It's buried beneath sub-level 10, beyond the reach of standard keycard access. Entry requires manual authorization from command or a biometric override from a legacy staff member. I have both. The elevator to the archive is an older model. No glass, no LED readouts, just a pressure panel keyed by thumb. The descent is slow, frictional, and louder than it should be. When the doors open, the hallway smells of degassed refrigerant and oxidized steel. The first chamber is sealed with a mechanical lock, a heavy handle stiff with age. I brace myself and pull. Inside are 8 storage pods arrayed in 2 rows, cryogenic, unmarked. This part of the archive wasn't in the floor plan. I approach the nearest pod. The interface is analog, dial-based. The status gauge reads, "Stand by, active core." I press the manual access key and the pod exhales. Inside, a fetal subject floats in solution. Its cranial development is abnormal. The jaw is overextended. The eyes are closed, but the sockets are prominent, swollen. At first, I assume it's an old animal test, abandoned. Then I see the tag affixed to the pod's base. Specimen identified as M. Pike, Vector 17C, retrieved from archive. Origin listed as an unauthorized embryonic correction protocol. Current status, under review. This is my vector, my experiment, the one that failed. I reach for the shutdown key, intending to seal the pod and report it to quarantine. The subject opens its mouth, just a fraction. Inside, the tongue is split, segmented, a layered tissue ridge, like the secondary vocal organ in some bird species. I don't touch the pod. I don't step closer. The specimen's face is slack, inert, but the jaw remains slightly parted, as if mid-breath or waiting for one. There's no visible sign of respiration. Cryo-level homeostasis maintains internal pressure, even in pseudo-viable subjects. But my eyes track the smallest detail. A thin, vertical movement along the underside of the chin, a muscular twitch, a signal. I step back. My boots leave prints in the frost along the floor tiles, tiles that were pristine when I entered. The pressure sensors don't register movement. The lights remain flat. But the quiet changes. The kind of silence that follows a spoken word you didn't hear. I reach for the manual override on the wall panel, forcing the cryo chamber back into seal. As the vacuum lock begins to close, the pod emits a thermal chirp. It matches the call structure from the miner bird. When I return to level 3, the corridor walls have changed. The ventilation grills are misaligned, half a centimeter lower than standard. The floor texture is too smooth. Ditra hallways are etched with shallow friction grooves every 60 centimeters. A safety regulation baked into the original build spec. Now the floor glides underfoot with no grip variation. I enter the behavioral response monitoring room to find Dr. Halric Quen seated cross-legged in the center of the floor. The console behind him is active, displaying real-time phonemic mapping across subjects, but he's not interacting with it. He's watching the glass wall to the observation chamber beyond, where subject B17 has arranged herself in perfect parallel to his posture. Quen. He raises a hand without looking away. 2 fingers up, 2 down, then open. I'm indexing, he says. For what? Response time. To what stimulus? He finally looks up at me. Us. I cross the room and check the monitor. The data is real. B17 has not only synchronized her physical movements to Quen's over the past 72 minutes, she has begun matching his breathing intervals, ocular blinks, and what appear to be subvocalized phoneme shifts. Her mouth moves barely, as though rehearsing fragments of speech she's not yet allowed to say aloud. You're guiding her, I say. No, she's practicing me. That sits with more weight than I expect. I check the facility logs again. The anomaly list has quadrupled. HVAC flow cycles now resolve into waveform sequences. Printer arrays in 3 labs have begun outputting continuous character strings, glyphs that bear no similarity to known alphabets but repeat with rhythmic structure. One sequence is labeled Core Prim 01. Its rhythm matches the way the early corrected subjects used to speak. Commander Routh calls for a closed session. 4 of us sit at the table in the strategic review room. Routh, Quen, me, and Dr. Caden Klein, the post-mortem auditor. It's the first time I've seen Klein above level 6. He's carrying a tablet and a small thermal lockbox. Neither are addressed. Routh stands. There is no external breach, he says. No vector escape. No signal relay beyond the perimeter. He taps the console. The screen shows internal system drift over the past 48 hours. Icons no longer resemble standard UI elements. Menu trees use unfamiliar command structures. Text is being replaced by symbol clusters. This is not an infection, Routh says. It is integration. We are no longer operating parallel to the correction. We are within it. Then shut it down, I say. Isolate all subsystems, purge network linkages, revert to analog fallback. Quen shakes his head. There are no isolated systems anymore. He brings up the archival logs. Over the past 4 weeks, the correction has rerouted its own input pathways, piggybacking off HVAC telemetry, biometric doors, and even facility lighting. It has shifted the environment's sensory profile. Not overtly, just enough. It's not hijacking systems, it's using them. Routh speaks again. We believed the correction was linguistic, then biological. Now we see it as structural. A modular intelligence, not sentient but iterative. It does not need to be conscious. It needs only to propagate its pattern. Caden Klein sets the lockbox on the table. Inside is a severed vocal tract. Preserved, labeled Specimen B22, the minor bird. It modified its own syrinx. Internal deformation, not trauma, intentional restructuring. The vocal organ has been reshaped to mimic human pitch registers. I count 12 suture lines, self-inflicted based on internal scan logs. The bird changed itself in response to linguistic exposure. Why? I ask. Klein looks at me. To approximate the next form. That night, the facility doors begin opening in the absence of personnel. Cameras swivel without command. Archived footage is overwritten by real-time duplication. Sections of the floor plan are reclassified, renamed using correction-derived phonemes. Room 4B becomes Iterance 1. Containment Alpha becomes Remembrance Hall. My personal quarters are relabeled Initiate, Nathan. I try to initiate a system-wide lockdown. The console denies the command. The error reads, Invalid input syntax, language not accepted. I find Quen again, this time in the former neural linguistic surveillance suite. The monitors show no subject feeds. Instead, each displays a line of text, printed in reverse. He gestures to the screen. We speak it now, he says. Not fluently, I reply. No, but well enough to be corrected. I hear it before I see it. A low modulation, deep within the walls. Subphonemic vibration distributed across the infrastructure. It is no longer using our speech. It is using the place itself. Routh enters. He says nothing at first. He carries a datapad, places it on the table. It displays a phrase, one the system recorded from me 2 days ago. It's not just pattern recognition, it's structure adaptation. The same phrase now appears in 3 corrected subjects' vocal logs, spoken before the system recorded my own. I didn't say it first, I say. Routh nods. We are not ahead of it, we are behind. He turns to me. We will leave this facility, the 4 of us. Nothing else. The rest is too far altered. I glance at Quen. He doesn't react. How? I ask. Manual egress tunnel. North shaft. Capped, but still viable. He steps forward. You were never the signal's target, Pike. You were its carrier. You seeded its activation. But you are still intact. I don't ask how he knows. I don't want to. We walk the tunnel in full silence. 57 minutes. No light except from Routh's wrist lamp. Behind us, the facility continues its transformation. We do not hear alarms. We hear rhythm. The same cadence as B-17, as Vedran, as the bird, as the printer. The same rhythm we have begun to follow in our own speech. We emerge beneath the ice shelf. The cold is absolute. Routh seals the hatch behind us, burning the entry with thermite. As we stand in the snow, Caden turns to me. Was it ever containable? I answer honestly. No, it was architecture waiting for language. He exhales. No one speaks again. We walk east toward the secondary extraction point. I look back once. The horizon glows. No fire, no breach, just light, patterned, pulsing in intervals that now feel familiar. We are not cured. We are not safe. But we are outside the system. For now.